Hollywood has many legends, most of them for their unique acting skills. Brynner is one of the actors that fall in the list. Known for the many roles he's donned, especially for his primary role as King Mongkut for The King and I, has received many accolades for his distinctive way of acting. Apart from his public persona and his penetrating stare, much about his life still remains a mystery. All the details that were received by the press were told by Brynner himself, so let us separate fact from fiction and reach the untouched truth about the enigmatic actor. The racial heritage of Brynner. Yuli Borisovich Brynner, born July 11, 1920 in Vladivostok, Russia, had many ethnicities. His father, Boris Yulievich, was an engineer and worked on many mining equipment. He was a mixture of Swiss, German, and Russian ancestry. Marusia Dmitrievna, his mother, who had studied acting and was trained to sing, was of Russian Romani ancestry. Brynner would enjoy concocting tales and often say that he was born Taj Khan to a Romani mother and a Mongol father. But as Yuli grew, eventually he would embrace all his ethnicities. Tragedies and life experience. As a result of his many travels for business, Boris Yulievich met and fell in love with an actress named Katya Kornikova in 1923 while visiting the Moscow Art Theater. After having a severe breakdown, Boris Yulievich chose to leave his family and begin a new life with Kornikova. His wife and kids were left behind in Vladivostok, along with his elder sister Vera, who was a classically trained vocalist who was preparing herself to sing for the New York City Opera. Brynner's mother had accepted that her husband would not be returning and told the child that their father had abandoned them. She made the decision to go to Harbin, China with her children and enrolled them in the YMCA. Harbin was often called the Oriental Paris. However, tension quickly brewed between China and Japan, and Marusia, who had just relocated to Harbin, was worried about the war and thus packed up their life once again and relocated the family to Paris, where they would spend the next 8 years. Building a life. Even though Brynner was just 12 years old when they relocated to Paris, the young man had made the decision to leave the home he was living in and start preparing for his livelihood. He lived with a Romani family, and it was with them that he picked his guitar skills. Being of Romani descent himself, Brynner must have felt at home with the family that hosted him, so learning to play the guitar seemed like just any other task for the gifted youngster. Even though he was in a foreign nation with unfamiliar language and traditions, he was able to adopt the ways of the locals. After Brynner picked up the guitar, a door opened leading to many possibilities, and one such was playing at Russian nightclubs all over Paris. Brynner's sister eventually started accompanying him on stage. His sister by then developed her singing skill, and both the siblings would entertain Paris with their Russian and Roma music. When he grew weary of singing, Brynner joined a circus training group and trained to be a trapeze artist. After 5 years of traveling with the circus group, he had to withdraw due to a severe back ailment. The Opium Abuse. What started as a medical purpose later became an abuse. Subsequent after his back injury and unexpected unemployment issues emerged, Brynner said in later years that he started abusing opium. For those in the creative community in the 1930s, this was not unusual. Brynner said that the period was prolonged and that he was happy that he was able to break the habit. This was mostly due to the fact that he'd begun acting seriously and that his mother had grown quite sick and required his regular assistance. His mother's health and journey after. When Brynner's mother received a leukemia diagnosis, he was abruptly compelled to abandon his hedonistic lifestyle. After making the decision to leave Paris with his mother, both of them returned to China for a 2-year period. Vera decided to stay in Paris and continue her singing career. Then she relocated to America. In the year 1940, his mother's condition had improved, and Brynner was once again prepared to pursue his career. After leaving Japan, he packed both his and his mother's belongings and set off on their journey to America. They first arrived at San Francisco, and as the journey continued, they reunited with Vera in New York City. Due to his many moves as a young man, Brynner had become fluent with his languages and well acquainted with most of the traditions as he lived. He was proficient in French, Chinese, and Russian. Brynner did not speak English quite well when he came to the U.S., but he would quickly learn that too. Being a gifted young man, he picked up new languages with ease. And by 1941, he had landed a little role on Broadway in Shakespeare's Twelfth Night. War and his acting career. Brynner was compelled to enlist in the military when the Second World War broke out, just as he was about to embark on a career in acting. However, it seems that he had a very fortunate break, as his linguistic abilities kept him alive and led to an employment at the U.S. Office of War Information Agency, saving him from having to engage in combat. In addition to working as a French-speaking radio pundit and announcer, he was able to pursue his acting career by attending acting classes simultaneously. During the war, Brynner studied acting with Russian acting coach Michael Chekhov while working as a radio broadcaster. Chekhov was himself trained in the Stanislavski methods, sometimes known as method acting. Actors like Marilyn Monroe, Jack Palance, and Clint Eastwood were big fans of this kind of acting. However, Brynner would soon face the harsh reality that the war had seriously damaged the theatrical industry, and there were few parts available. Despite his rising ability and ambition, he would have to find another pastime. Brynner had trouble landing acting parts during the post-war years, but he still had rent to pay. Photographer George Platt Lynn, who had previously worked for Vogue and Harper's Bazaar, discovered Brynner. Lynn had invited Brynner to do several nude photo shoots for him and compensated him for it. Lynn had assured Brynner that the images would stay in his private collection. The photographer then handed Dr. Alfred Kinsey, the renowned sexologist, his complete collection just before he passed away in 1955. Thanks to Kinsey's study, the images are now in the public domain. Relationships and life with a camera. In the year 1944, Yul Brynner wed Virginia Gilmore, an actress who had worked in Broadway shows and movies. Virginia Gilmore said that the turbulent nature of their marriage, by the way, which lasted until 1960, was caused by the fact that they both worked in the same field. "Two actors can't manage together," she said. "Someone has to give." Yul "Rock" Brynner was the couple's only child, who was born in 1946. They gave their baby the nickname Rock in homage to the great boxer Rocky Graziano. Rock Brynner, an author, speaker, and historian, produced a book titled Yul, the Man Who Would Be King, honoring his father. Brynner discovered that he was interested in directing, another branch of the entertainment business, during his marriage to Virginia Gilmore. He started his career as a director while working at the new CBS television studios. Brynner directed 467 episodes for a show called Studio One, which ran for 10 seasons, from 1948 to 1958. Brynner was one of 17 directors who contributed to the show's production. Later in his career, Brynner would direct a number of additional TV series such as Actors Studio, Danger, Starlight Theater, and Sure as Fate. In 1949, Yul Brynner starred in his very first motion picture, Port of New York. Laszlo Benedict, the director, used a pseudo-documentary technique for shooting the film. Since it was Brynner's debut appearance, the actor had not yet begun shaving his head in the signature manner while being filmed on location in New York. Brynner portrayed himself as a cocaine smuggler, Paul Vicola, in the movie, who is being pursued by two federal investigators. K.T. Stevens was portrayed as his girlfriend, while Scott Brady and Richard Rober represented the agents. Brynner's brand new spark in acting was ignited after seeing the movie. Brynner, who was leaning more toward directing than performing, he was given the screenplay for a new Broadway production of the composer-lyricist team of Rodgers and Hammerstein. He went through an audition in 1951 for the role of King Mongkut in the film The King and I. After he was cast for the position, it became the role that would define his career going forward. He performed as the king 4,625 times in all, including Broadway productions and revivals that took place in 1977, 1979, and 1985. For both the Broadway performances and the most recent revival of the play, He would go on to win a Tony Award for Best Featured Actor in a Musical. Life after The King and I and his trend. 20th Century Fox chose to make a film adaptation of The King and I because they were so pleased with Brynner's performances in Hollywood. Naturally, they wanted Brynner to play the main role. The movie was released in the year 1956 with Deborah Kerr as the lead actress, and Brynner's performance earned him an Academy Award for Best Actor. The movie was a commercial and critical hit, and Brynner became one of the 10 people in history to win an Oscar and a Tony for the same performance. That was a very uncommon accomplishment. In the 13-episode television adaptation of Anna and the King for CBS in 1972, he played the same part once again. Men who had baldness in the 1950s often concealed it. However, Yul Brynner's appearance in The King and I changed all of that, making it seem normal to be bald and not hide it. It soon became the appearance that Brynner was known for. Yul Brynner's bald head served as a major source of inspiration for another well-known and adored comic book characters such as Professor Charles Xavier from the original X-Men comics. Jack Kirby, the creator of the character, said he drew inspiration from Yul Brynner's appearance. Following his triumph in The King and I, renowned filmmaker Cecil B. DeMille opted to cast Brynner as Pharaoh Ramses II for his lavish production of the epic The Ten Commandments in the year 1956. Moses, portrayed by Charlton Heston, was Brynner's co-star. Brynner had some insecurity when filming the scene because of Heston's excessive physicality. Brynner began working out to feel in line with the star's physical appearance. We really believe that he was able to compete with the greatest action star of the day, Charlton Heston. Men and women alike were beginning to take note of Yul Brynner as his celebrity status grew. Following the publications of The King and I and The Ten Commandments, his fame skyrocketed. In an attempt to achieve the Yul Brynner look, some have even begun shaving their heads. Brynner was still married to Virginia Gilmore when he made his Broadway debut in The King and I, but his curiosity had grown, and many ladies were willing to meet his cold gaze. Among these ladies was the 19-year-old actress Marlene Dietrich, with whom Brynner had an affair. Offspring and marriage. The actor was the parent of 5 kids in all. Yul Rock Brynner, the son in his first marriage to Virginia Gilmore, who was born in 1946. In the year 1950, Frankie Tilden, a 20-year-old woman, had an illegitimate daughter named Lark Brynner. At the age of 39, Brynner provided financial assistance for the kid. 1962 saw the birth of Victoria Brynner, his daughter from his second marriage to Doris Kleiner. During his third marriage to Jacqueline Simone Theon de la Chambre, he adopted Mia Brynner and Melody Brynner from Vietnam in 1974 and 1975. These were his final 2 children. Virginia Gilmore and Yul Brynner divorced in 1960. This was most likely related to the love child he and Frankie Tilden had in 1959. In any case, Brynner did not waste any time in getting married again, this time to Doris Kleiner, a model from Chile. Between 1960 and 1967, Brynner and Kleiner were wed, and their only child, Victoria Brynner, was born in 1967. The actress Audrey Hepburn served as the godmother of their daughter, and the pair were married on the set of the western The Magnificent Seven. The Magnificent Seven, a 1960 western starring Steve McQueen and Yul Brynner, was partially inspired by the 1954 Japanese epic Seven Samurai. In the movie, McQueen portrayed Vin Tanner, a wanderer, while Brynner played gunman Chris Adams. McQueen had relatively few spoken lines in the picture due to its script, therefore the actor asked for more time on screen. It seems that McQueen was similarly worried that his co-star would steal the show in most of the sequences, so he devised subtle strategies to detract from Brynner. Tossing money, shaking his rifle, and fiddling with his headgear were a few of his ploys. In retaliation, Brynner made sure the set had mounds of dirt he could stand on to give the impression he was taller than McQueen. Money problems. During the 60s, despite the fame and the success he'd gained from his acting, Yul Brynner was struggling with money troubles. These problems were mostly due to paying taxes, or rather the fact that he wasn't interested in paying them. In 1943, the actor had become a naturalized U.S. citizen, and this required him to pay taxes. But he never received a tax exemption because he was always working out of the country. To avoid paying exorbitant taxes without a rebate, Brynner traveled to Switzerland in 1965 and gave up his U.S. citizenship. Daughter, the fashion designer. The 7-year marriage between Brynner and Doris Kleiner came to an end in 1967. Born in the year 1962, Victoria Brynner was raised in Paris and Chile for most of her youth. Victoria started Stardust Brands, a business that collaborates closely with Versace, Christian Dior, Zac Posen, and Louis Vuitton. The company's mission is to match fashion businesses with celebrity clients. She's collaborated with popular people including Lady Gaga, Andre Agassi, and Johnny Depp. The Last Curtain Call and his anti-smoking campaign. A tumor on Yul Brynner's voice cords was discovered during his 1983 tour for The King and I, which would be the show's last revival. Upon receiving the test results, it was discovered that Brynner really had lung cancer rather than the presumed throat cancer. The actor started smoking heavily when he was only 12 years old, and those years had taken a toll. The King and I's production was placed on pause while Yul Brynner started receiving radiation therapy for his illness, leaving the remaining cast and crew uncertain about the show's future. Following his recuperation, Yul Brynner returned to the stage and continued to play until his last performance in January 1985. The actor died 3 months later. Yul Brynner was determined to create an advertisement alerting people to the risks associated with smoking before he passed away at the age of 65. He stated this desire on Good Morning America, and ultimately the interview's video was turned into a public service advertisement. The American Cancer Society assembled the video from Brynner's conversation to produce the service announcement that Brynner had dreamed for only days after his death in 1985. It had been his goal that the campaign should help reach the message that people should avoid smoking completely. Honoring the actor. The Russian town of Vladivostok, where Yul Brynner was born, has never forgotten its own celebrity. Yul Brynner Park is the park that bears the actor's name. Rock Brynner, the late actor's son, was present at the ceremony for the installation of a strikingly realistic monument of Yul Brynner in the heart of the park by the city of Vladivostok in 2012. The real statue was made to resemble King Mongkut from The King and I, which was his most well-known part. The actor, who is Russian-American, will always be remembered. In addition to having a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, he's also mentioned in the lyrics of the song One Night in Bangkok for a musical, Chess. Yul Brynner is also the name of a fictional character in a comedy show, Cool Runnings, which was aired in 1993, and Pavement's Stephen Malkmus used a snippet of an interview about shaving his head and performing in his song JoJo's Jacket. If you've watched the video till here, that means you've enjoyed the video. Subscribe. Don't forget to turn on the notifications bell icon